Okay, hello, welcome back to part 5 of Chapter 9 Social Commerce Zone. We just finished talking about the importance of reviews, how software can influence the decision of someone, and we talked a little bit about facilitating the purchase as well, and we just got on to the idea of the post-purchase evaluation. So as I said already, this has become a really important aspect of social media commerce, because of the capacity for people to share their views and become brand advocates. So the sort of tools, really obvious one is comments posted on social network sites, but generally this is solicited a lot of the time. So if an organisation knows you've purchased from them, they'll actually come looking for you to comment. So things like a loyalty program can have social benefits as well. So a loyalty program where you get points or something in return for it, or you get extra points if you comment on it. You can submit ratings and reviews on review sites and retailer websites. So B&Q are really enthusiastic, and they really push this at the till, where they actually link your receipt. They ring the part of your receipt, and they really kind of ask you really nicely to go on and give them a review. But it also can take place through blogs. So this is the reason why post-evaluation is so important, is this idea of the third moment of truth. So the idea that there's a zero MOT, where you actually first are aware of the existence of a product, and the first MOT is a moment of truth, is within the first couple of seconds you actually realise this could be interesting. The second MOT comes from the fact it's a moment of truth that you realise that every time you use the product, you get a sense that this product is actually really satisfying my needs. So somebody with a luxury car or a nice phone or whatever, every time they take it out, it just feels right. It's a good thing. That's a moment of truth, and that drives into what's known as the third moment of truth, where people become advocates for the brand, where you suddenly become, I will share this with everybody else. I have made a good decision, and I will share it with other people to buy this product, and I will share it with other people. So, we discussed these best practices in soliciting and driving this already, but some other practices to consider when actually trying to get this. So the idea is that it's important to educate people about the product, so they actually know what the product can do and what the features are. Lots of times we buy products and we only use a fraction of them. It's kind of the 80-20 rule. There's things in Excel that nobody uses practically. So identify the people most likely to share opinions, so we can use a certain amount of behavioural analysis and see who the well-connected people who create a lot of content actually are. We might be more interested in the people who are active in social networks as opposed to the observers or the lurkers. We make it really easy for people to share, and then we study and we examine how, when and where opinions are shared. So where are people posting their reviews? They might be where we expect them to. Sorry about that. And then it's really important to actually listen and respond, both to supporters and to detractors and to neutrals, because if we just ignore detractors or we dismiss them out of hand, it's not likely to be effective. So this is an example, it's worth looking at in the book. Mantra Band's approach to social commerce. So they use Shopify to enable purchases from within Facebook, so there's a social storefront. They use Yotpo app to manage requests for customer reviews with mobile functionality and auto posting to social network sites. So the idea is that you might post a review onto their site, but they have the capacity so they can be spread across your social media sites, and they curate user-generated content from multiple sites. The whole idea is that they're constantly working towards gathering as many positive ratings and reviews as possible, but also the negative ones are a learning experience for the organisation, so they can improve their product. Okay, so this is the kind of maybe the last major topic we're going to cover this week, and this is the psychological factors that influence social shopping. So, the first thing to remember is that we all have biases. These are kind of like shortcuts we take when we process information. So, anybody who's studied introductory level economics will hear a lot about rational man and rational decision making and how you can maximize utility and get the best value and whatever. And this doesn't really reflect the messiness of how humans actually make decisions in the first place. In reality, rather than us acting rationally, there's bounds on irrationality. There is a limit to our cognitive capacity. So it's some things are too complex to work out, some things aren't worth working out. So generally what we tend to do is we satisfy our main needs and maybe optimize some other ones, one or two. We take shortcuts in our decisions. What we can really suffer from is information overload, where there's too much. So satisfying is the idea that we just do enough to make an acceptable decision. So something isn't that important to us, good enough is enough. And then what we referred to earlier as well was this idea of the heuristic, the rule of, where's that camera gone? The rule of thumb that we use in decision making. So this is I think this is a fabulous it's one of these kind of quotes that reflects on itself that man is a rational animal. All my life I search for evidence which will support this. So Bertrand Russell is being rational in his critique of irrationality. He's looking for evidence to support it. So fundamental to economics is the idea that it's rational. Now a lot of work has been done and Nobel Prizes have been won by people who've kind of shattered this idea that people are rational. Herbert Simons was making the argument is that some decisions are just too intractable, they're just too difficult. If you take something like we compare, two rugby players or two football players, Messi or Ronaldo, which one is better? And somebody will say, well, Ronaldo scored more goals this year and Messi does more for his team. And you're comparing complex variables that aren't really quantifiable. Like, one's a better team player or whatever. It's really difficult, and there's a limitation on our ability to judge this. And oftentimes, when it comes to important decisions, there's also a limitation on the time available to us. So in this way, we see people as satisficers. So if we want something, if it meets our needs, it's good enough. We don't necessarily care if it's the best one available. Okay, so information overload is exactly what it says. It's the idea that we've got more information than we can actually, or data that we can actually cope with. So if I give you, if my app had ran effectively last week and I brought down all the tweets on Brexit, we wouldn't have been able to analyse them to make a decision of what Twitter actually feels. We couldn't, because it's just too much data. We would have had to find some way of coding and simplifying it. So satisficing is all about doing just enough to make an acceptable decision. And it's important to remember that multi-objective problems like, who's the best footballer or who's the best rugby player in the world or whatever, there isn't a single answer. It depends on what you prioritise. And an example of that is what is the best car for me? It really depends. Is comfort more important? Is safety more important? Is fuel efficiency more important? Is what other people think about it more important? Is what the colour more important? All these things depend on different people. So there's the great Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt finishing a race, turning around, having a look to see where everybody else is. Everybody else in the background is still going at full tilt, but he knows he just needs to do enough to win the race. A lot of times as well, if it's in the case of performance, you don't necessarily want to make your best performance, especially in sport, in athletics or whatever. You don't necessarily want to give your best performance all in one go, because there can be bonuses for breaking records. So rather than actually going as far as you can in a single go, you might want to put on a show and build up to your best time. So heuristics are this idea of the rules of thumb or shortcuts. So it's a practical method. It's not guaranteed to be optimal or perfect, but it's good enough. So the idea is that, sometimes if we're out and, I'm asked to choose a bottle of wine and I don't really know, I'll have something in my mind like, I like the Chilean ones, or I like the New Zealand ones, or I like the second cheapest one is normally drinkable but not too expensive. I won't pick the top one in Google because that's what Google wants me to pick, so I'll pick the second top one. And these have become almost universally accepted heuristics and rules of dealing with things. But there is no, they'll get us through the immediate thing, but they won't necessarily give us the best decision. And maybe there isn't an optimal answer to the question we're actually asking. So then, if we go on and we think, what's going on in people's minds, and the first thing is, there's this idea of social proof, which is a belief that if lots of people are doing something, it must be right. So there's a famous expression in business that nobody ever got fired for buying IBM or Microsoft. Everybody has it, so we'll all buy it. Whether it's better or not doesn't really come into it. It's a safe option. This is the idea, is that you get this kind of herding behaviour and conformity. So herding behaviour is when everybody follows the behaviour of others. So you really see this with fashion, where certain things that would be considered absolutely ridiculous one year, everybody goes wearing the next year. I think I showed the video of the dancing guy that shows how herding behaviour can happen really quickly. Like there's a tipping point when something becomes accepted and everybody does it. And this is the idea then, is we conform. We actually change our beliefs or actions as a reaction to group pressure. And what you really see this in US politics, if anybody's watching it, is the idea is that people are actually taking on beliefs as a result of pressure from in their peer group. So you have people, who change their views on global warming because the political party they support and the supporters of that have a consensus, and for them to actually conform and fit in, they need to change their views. So the idea is that everything that often starts out as a unique trend can become mainstream, and it's like this idea is that everybody is different. That makes everybody a little bit the same. So it's we don't copy everything we see. So what are the forces that cause people to conform? So the first one is cultural pressures. So something in our culture that wants to do it. There's a fear of deviance, where people are actually afraid that they will be punished if they act differently. The level of commitment to our group. How committed are we to the group that we will behave in the same way as everyone else? Is the group unanimous? So if you take the views of a political party on something like abortion or Northern Ireland in Ireland or whatever, you might have a very high level of unanimity as to what the policy is in a particular party, and then it becomes very difficult from somebody with an alternative view to maintain that view, and they will tend to conform. So the larger the group and the greater the consensus and expertise, or the greater the expertise of the individual, maybe they're more likely to stand up to it. And then some people are just more susceptible to interpersonal influences. So then, what actually really really drives people again is, if the person that's providing an opinion has a high level of authority, it's more likely to be accepted. If we like people, we're more likely to do it. If we perceive something to be scarce, we increase our efforts to get it. So that the real example of this is diamonds, which aren't actually that scarce, but the supply of them is actually kept scarce by a monopoly, so therefore they become desirable. We're often embedded to repay a debt or favour to people in our group, so we will behave in a particular way, and we often want to be seen to be consistent. So this explains a lot of conformance, is that if someone believes in certain things that a group believe in but not the others, they may appear as inconsistent, and this puts them under a lot of pressure. Okay, so we're going to wrap this lecture up in one more part. So thank you for listening this far. A reminder that if you have any questions, to tweet me or to post it on social on the Moodle discussion boards, or if you're really shy, you can email me. However, I really would prefer if you try to share the learning with each other. Okay, I'll see you for a short final part. Thank you.